Everyone, welcome to another edition of the Daily Fantasy MMA Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, better known as Gravycakes on Roto Grinders, and I'm here with my co-host, Brett, better known as bbbomb, your number one authority on anything DFS MMA related. Let's get to the card, actually. UFC Fight Night 74, Holloway versus Oliveira. No time to waste, Brett. That takes place in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. In my home country, there are plenty of French Canadian fighters, which are my specialty. So I'll be handling the names on that one, Brett. Don't you worry. So that's happening. There's 12 fights on this card. Really looking forward to it. It should be a good free card on the Fox Sports network. And before we get to the fights, Brett, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. So are you going to be able to make a trip up to Saskatoon this weekend?
Believe it or not, even though everyone thinks Canada is like, maybe 30 miles wide, it's like 3,000 miles away. So definitely not going over there. Though
I thought everyone in Canada knew each other. So
what's funny is that I think my cousin's going. So I technically know someone that's going to this fight, but
wow.
yeah, so I do know someone's going to the fight. I'm sure everyone else that's going to that fight is very nice, like all Canadians, but they're all going to get drunk. They're all going to be screaming. They're going to be yelling when there's going to be all these knockouts on this card, which should really translate well to high-scoring DFS. Speaking of high-scoring DFS, so this week on DK, we've got a $50,000 haymaker, $3 entry fee, and a $30K takedown, which it costs you $27 to buy in. A lot of heads-up action, a lot of 50-50s, triple ups. Really encourage anyone that is getting into DFS MMA. Go check out DraftKings.com. Pretty much the place to do MMA
Fantasy
DFS.
MMA.
Yeah. So before we kick off the card, I know we've got those 12 fights. Just to let everyone know, we've kicked off a new YouTube channel, Daily Fantasy MMA. We've also opened an iTunes podcast and a Stitcher podcast, and you can find us on Podmatic as well. So, just in case you watch it on YouTube and you miss hearing our voices, you're on the run, just hop on iTunes, listen to us again. I know I like to listen to Brett's voice right before I go to sleep. So,
or maybe you just hate what we look like and you just want to hear an audio version of us, and so there you go. There's audio versions on iTunes, Stitcher, Automatic. The video version will stay on YouTube, but yeah, just give it a subscribe to it, just like it, comment, all those things help us out a lot, and all we want to do is keep providing MMA content for you guys. So anything that you guys can do will definitely help us do that.
Exactly, and hopefully we can help you guys make some money. I know we made some money last week on the UFC Fight Night 73 card. Definitely profited in 50-50s. I profited in heads-up games and in GPPs, actually. It didn't hit any big scores, but made some money, so happy about that. And let's keep that rolling. So kicking off on the Fight Pass prelims at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got a light heavyweight bout between Misha Serkinov, who can be had for $11,100 on DraftKings, versus Daniel Jolly, who can be had for $8,300 on DraftKings. The lines on 5 dimes opened with Misha Serkinov, a minus 350 favorite, is now at minus 450, so money coming in on him, who is a Canadian, by the way, so maybe a little Canadian bias coming for me here. And Daniel Jolly, who opened at plus 250, is now at plus 360. So 2 newcomers for the first curtain jerker here. We've got a well-known Canadian talent who's had a lot of hype for a couple years, but just hasn't made the transition to the UFC and is finally getting that against an American fighter, Jolly, who is a grappler as well, who's coming in actually on short notice. If I recall correctly, Sean O'Connell was the one that was injured, which is unfortunate because I was really looking forward to seeing him weigh in. You really have to see Sean O'Connell weigh in and see the hilarious things he likes to do during the stare-off. But I digress. He is not there. Let's get your opinion on the fight here, Brett.
Well, Serkinov is this week's version of Scott Holtzman, right? He's a UFC newcomer, opening prelim fight, and he's the biggest favorite on the card, so we have to take a strong look at him. And just like Holtzman, I like him this week. He's a pretty highly touted prospect, like you said. He's been trying to get, or he's been thought of as he could have made his UFC debut a while ago, but he is a very strong grappler. He's got a great judo game, and he has transitioned that really well to MMA. He likes to, take his opponents down, advance, but he's got some good ground and pound. On the other side, Jolly's a pretty similar fighter, but from what I've seen, he's just not as good as Serkinov in any of those areas. He will like to clinch with his opponent, get his opponent to the ground, but he's much more of a top control fighter, whereas Serkinov will actually throw ground and pound, and he's got some slick submissions. So I really don't see either fighter having a huge advantage on the feet. I really expect this fight to end up on the ground because that's really the strength of both fighters. And from everything I've seen, everything I've heard, Serkinov should have a huge advantage in that area. And the fact that Jolly is coming in on short notice just is a huge detriment. Fighters making their UFC debut don't usually do well. Obviously, both are making their debut, but making your debut on short notice it's a hard thing to come back from, especially as a huge underdog. So I'm liking Serkinov as a safe victor in this fight with a good chance to finish, possibly by TKO on the ground or by submission.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree here. The Canadian bias is already coming out in the first fight. From what I've heard, Serkinov, should be better everywhere, except maybe on the feet where it should be pretty even. On the ground, I've heard a lot of the same things. Serkinov, should have a big advantage, and I like to target newcomers in the UFC, especially ones coming in on short notice. And even though Serkinov is coming in as a newcomer as well, the win inside distance prop on Serkinov is -137, which is really good. So, I'm hoping he pulls a Holtzman here and, wins this one inside the distance, and definitely will have some exposure to him in cash games and without a question in GPPs.
And is he actually from Canada? Because I thought he was from – I forget where he trains, but he's from some Eastern European.
He's from Latvia, I believe, and he moved to Canada a while ago. He opened up his own gym. Yeah, so the one thing I've heard, which kind of turned me off a little bit from Serkinov, is that he split with his longtime coach. He opened up his new gym, and word on the street is he's having some personal issues or something. But honestly, from what I hear, he's way better than Jolly. Jolly, as far as I understand, hasn't really fought anyone that good, crushing cans as far as I've heard. Though I have watched some of his tape. He actually doesn't look that bad. But
Serkinov should be the guy to beat in this fight, and Vegas obviously sides with him pretty strongly.
Vegas agrees. I'm saying Serkinov by TKO. What about you, Brett?
I'll take Serkinov by TKO, but I think he could easily get a submission. If it is a TKO, I expect it to be through ground and pound. So hopefully he will get a finish, probably in the middle of the fight, if I had to guess.
All right. So let's move on to the next fight on the Fight Pass prelims. We've got a lightweight fight between Elias Silverio, who can be had for $11,000 on DraftKings, versus Shane Campbell, who can be had for $8,400 on DraftKings. So the line opened -160. Elias Silverio, more money has come in on Silverio at this point, who is now at -260, while Shane Campbell at 120 is now at +220. So, I have always liked Shane Campbell from what I've seen. I am a big fan, but seems like he's got his hands full in this one, right, Brett?
Yeah, he's kind of a frustrating guy, and I'm still torn on whether I'm actually going to be targeting him this weekend, because I mean, you watch a highlight video of Shane Campbell, and he's just got so many head kick knockouts. His striking is pretty fantastic. It's just he's really tall, really lengthy. Elias Silverio is a pretty big. What is this? 155.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a pretty big 155er, but Campbell's taller than him. But Campbell's just not super athletic, and Silverio is a really muscular guy. Should have the strength advantage in this fight. Silverio is a pretty highly touted prospect too. He lost his last fight to Magomedov, I believe, who's another good prospect. And the interesting thing with this fight is that I think Silverio would have his way with Campbell if he chooses to wrestle and get Campbell to the ground. But I don't know if he will do that. In his last fight, he, wanted to stand and bang for 3 rounds, and he ended up getting caught and knocked out in the 3rd round. He is a decent Muay Thai striker, so even if he does stay on the feet, I think he'll have a good chance to compete with Campbell. But Campbell's like he's sneaky good. He was beating up John McDessie for a while before he just dropped his hands a bit too much and McDessie clocked him. So if Silverio stays on the feet and doesn't try to wrestle Campbell to the ground, I almost want to give Campbell the edge. Just he's a higher volume striker. I give the power edge to Silverio, but that's more useful for a finish, whereas Campbell, I think, could probably win a decision on the feet or even get a finish. But like I said, if Silverio does choose to grapple, I think it could be a much easier route to victory for him. So that's the biggest question I'm having. Vegas obviously likes Silverio. I think I have to give him the edge in this fight, just based on that strength, athleticism, and I'm assuming that he will try to grapple a bit here.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, from what I've heard, Silverio has way more ways to win this fight. But everyone is saying that Campbell is perhaps a better striker on the feet here. So if Silverio can get him down or start, getting him in the clinch, that, he could have some problems. Campbell's striking defense is not that great, as we saw against McDessie. He was looking good. And Silverio does bring a pretty high pace, from what I understand. So, that could bring him some trouble as well. So I'm not really on Silverio because there are some question marks there when it comes to which Shane Campbell shows up. I mean, I've seen some really good fights from him, and then, the one against McDessie. I believe he was on short notice for that fight. And
yeah, he
they
was.
fought at a catch weight, I believe. So he's a big 155er as well. I could be wrong about the catch weight, but I know for a fact that he's fought at 170 before. So
I'm not sure about the catch weight, honestly, but one thing that I'm also thinking about is everyone was on Campbell in his last fight. Everyone was on Campbell, and everyone saw him get knocked out. So I'm wondering if the masses are going to be off Campbell for this fight. And if he is going to be really lowly owned, then I will want more shares of him. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, well, the over/under on this fight is at 1.5 rounds, minus 220. So I think Vegas thinks it's going to go over 1.5 rounds. But I think Shane Campbell's got a sneaky chance at finishing this inside the distance. His win inside distance is plus 420, which isn't awful. It's not great either, but definitely a sneaky GPP play. I don't hate it in cash if you want to save some money and you think he has a shot to win. To be honest with you, I'm going to wait till I see him at the weigh-ins if he doesn't look too bad, because he does have trouble making 155. If he does look good at the weigh-ins, maybe I'll consider throwing him into some cash lineups. But this is kind of a wait and see for me. But when it comes to Silverio, I'll have some GPP exposure, but I'm really not sure about cash games. I don't think he's awful, but for the price, I think there are better options.
Yeah, I'm off Silverio for the most part, especially for his price. But I do like Campbell a bit.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm gonna say Silverio here. I'm gonna say Silverio inside the distance, but that could change after the weigh-in. So don't quote me on that. What about you, Brett?
I took Silverio by decision because I think that if he wins, it most likely will be through grappling exchanges, and I think that it's less likely that he'll finish him on the ground than on the feet. So I have Silverio by decision right now.
All right, so starting off on the Fox Sports 1 card, we've got a bantamweight fight where another grappler versus striker matchup here. Chris Kalides, who can be had for 9,300 on DraftKings, is fighting against Chris Beal, who can be had for 10,100 on DraftKings. Chris Beal, the favorite, again, Chris Beal opened at minus 185, now sitting at minus 165, where Chris Kalides is at 145 and opened at 145. So lines tightened up a little, maybe a little money coming in on Chris Kalides here, but I don't know if he has it on this one, to be honest. But let's get a rundown from you, Brett.
Yeah, this is a fight I want to breeze through. It's a classic striker versus grappler matchup in the sense that Chris Beal definitely has a striking advantage in this fight. His boxing is really good. It's not necessarily elite, but it should be much better than Kalides'. Chris Kalides is a grappler. He uses his stand up to get to the clinch, to get to the ground, but he doesn't like. He's not great on the ground either. He's pretty good. He's a good scrambler and he's a good wrestler. He's not a great submission grappler. And I think for DFS this week, I'm going to be fading this fight for the most part, just because I think Kalides will be able to grapple with Beal enough to limit the upside on Beal. And I really don't see this fight ending in a finish. I think the most likely outcome is Beal keeps the fight standing enough to win rounds and win a decision. It wouldn't shock me if Kalides could drag the fight to the ground and win rounds there. But Beal's a decent wrestler. He's not great, but he's pretty decent. He uses offensive wrestling in his fights as well. So my gut says that, Beal has more opportunities to win. He's more well-rounded. And I think the most likely outcome is Beal by decision.
Yeah, and apart from getting submitted by Ray Borg, Chris Kalides hasn't looked too bad in the UFC. I have to agree with you from a DFS standpoint. Not really crazy about this fight, but especially on the Kalides side, even if he wins, I don't think he's going to get a lot of points. Mm-hmm. If you believe that Chris Beal can keep this fight standing, for I believe 10,100, if you can keep it standing, maybe he can get you some points striking. But the output when it comes to Chris Beal, significant strikes landed per minute is like 2.8, which is definitely under the average. So I'm probably staying away from this fight in cash games altogether. But if you really like Chris Beal for an extra $100 over the average, I don't hate it, but I'm probably staying away. So I'm going to say Chris Beal by decision, and let's stop wasting the viewers' time.
Hey, no, they need to know who's going to win.
Who do you have, by the way?
I have Beal by decision.
Beal by decision. Shocker. All right, so moving on, we've got a light heavyweight bout, where we've got Nikita Krylov going toe-to-toe with Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Krylov can be had for $9,500 on DraftKings, while de Lima can be had for $9,900 on DraftKings. The line opened de Lima as a favorite at minus 150. Lines have tightened up a bit. De Lima is at minus 145, while Krylov at plus 110 can now be had for plus 125. This should be a barn burner. someone's going down in this one. The over-under on this fight is 1.5 rounds. The over at plus 170. So Vegas thinks that this one's going to end quickly. I have to agree. I'm waiting for someone to get knocked out because unlike last fight where we had all those heavyweight fights, I was sorely disappointed. Or sorry, sorely disappointed with those Struve fight and all those other heavyweight fights. I need to see someone get knocked out. So you're going to see it here. Krylov, Lima, who you got?
How much De Lima is too much De Lima?
Ooh, really?
No, I'm half kidding, but I agree with you that I think this fight is the most likely fight on the card to end in a finish, the most likely fight to end in the first round, and I think you need exposure to it. I'm gonna take De Lima in this fight just because I think that he has the better striking, he has the better power striking. And I think that's honestly what it's going to come down to. I think that he'll be able to land punches on Krylov early. Krylov doesn't have the best striking defense. He's been knocked out before. And I think De Lima has a great shot to put him away early. Krylov doesn't have bad offensive striking, but he's really used his submission grappling more in the UFC to his advantage. But from what I remember, Lima isn't bad on the ground either. I just think that this fight's going to end up on the feet. These guys are not, it's not Bigfoot versus Pelele. They actually have cardio to last more than a minute and a half. So they should be throwing bombs in the beginning of the fight. And I think Lima gets the TKO early. One thing I'm considering, I'm not sure if you've considered this as well, is stacking this fight for cash games just to, guarantee yourself, or as close to guarantee yourself as possible, 110 points.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely crossed my mind. The way the pricing is this week, I'm kind of tempted not to stack it and just go with one. For a couple reasons that you can probably get a couple more favorites in because there are a couple with some emerging favorites. But, stacking this fight to boost your floor is never a bad thing. And if you're going to do it with one fight on this card, it is most likely this one. So definitely has crossed my mind, but I haven't made a decision. But, this fight, I've been kind of going back and forth on it. So I don't exactly have a super clear favorite. I am leaning one way, but that kind of means that if I am going to use one of these in cash, that you should probably just stack it.
Yeah, and I'm too nervous to just take one or the other for the most part, so that's why I am considering it. I just hate the feeling of, toss-up fight, so to speak, and then it going the wrong way and having it be a 100-point swing. So, but I do like De Lima, and I think both guys are obviously very playable in GPPs, especially for their price. This fight should be one of the highest targeted fights on the card.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to have 100% exposure to this fight. I'm leaning De Lima by knockout just because of Krylov's striking defense. I think it's worse than De Lima's, and I think that's going to be the difference. And I think De Lima is a bit better, even on the floor, as far as I understand. So, got to go with De Lima here. The only thing that's kind of throwing me off is everyone saying, Krylov is, easily hittable. But when you look at his numbers, strikes absorbed per minute and landed, he's, his output's like 2-1 in favor. So, whereas De Lima is actually getting hit more than he's putting out. So that's an interesting stat. But, stats only say so much, and I definitely do trust yourself and some of the experts that I do listen to. So I'm sticking with De Lima by TKO. I assume you have the same there, Brett?
Yes, I do.
All right, so line these guys up in GPPs, and, if you're brave, pick one in cash games or stack it.
Yeah.
All right, so next on the card, we've got a bantamweight fight between Yves Jabouin Oh, the French is kicking in, everyone. Who can be had for 9,100 on DraftKings against Felipe Arantes, who can be had for 10,300 on DraftKings. Arantes, the favorite here at minus 175 was the opening, can now be had for minus 200. So some money coming in on Arantes. And the comeback on Jabouin started at plus 135, is now at plus 170. So I guess, for this fight, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I'm not too crazy about it for DFS purposes. But Brett, I guess my main question here is Jabouin's glass chin hold up?
I was ready to pronounce it Yves Jabouin, but I guess Jabouin is a slightly better pronunciation. The more that I've looked into this, the more I think Arantes is got a sneaky shot for a finish here. He's dropping down weight classes, I believe. The thing is, he's just more powerful everywhere. He's got more powerful striking, and he's a good submission grappler. And I think that sooner rather than later, he's going to be able to hurt Jabouin. So whether or not he just knocks him out cold or stuns him and follows up with the TKO, I'm not sure. But I just think Jabouin at this point in his career, he's 5 years old or something like that. He's a bit limited. He's a good kickboxer. He's a decent wrestler, but I don't think he's going to be able to beat Arantes, the younger fighter, in this one. And like I said, Arantes is a bit of a dark horse for me to get a finish. I like him for GPPs. I wouldn't touch either guy in cash games, and I don't really like Jabouin at all, just because I don't really see a strong route to victory for him. The only way I can see him winning is, to out kickbox Arantes for 3 rounds, and that just seems unlikely to me at this point. So I have Arantes. I haven't decided whether or not I'm taking him by finish or by decision, but I'm definitely leaning his way.
So in the last 6 fights for Yves Jabouin, we've got 3 wins, all by decision, and then alternating losses to Brad Pickett, Eddie Wineland, and Thomas Almeida, who are pretty legit fighters, but all of those are by knockout or technical knockout. So definitely gonna have some Arantes in GPPs. The only thing I'm not sure about is Arantes is a little inconsistent from fight to fight. He doesn't fight as often as most fighters. He is a bigger guy. I've heard he has some questionable cardio, but he's pretty well-rounded. He'll have the better chin. I'm just not totally sold on him from a cash game perspective. So my money will probably be elsewhere in cash games, but definitely going to have some Arantes in GPPs. Got to put in guys against glass chins. So I'm picking Arantes by decision here. But yeah, definite shot at the knockout.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I think he's probably going to finish Jabouin. Yeah, Jabouin's been knocked out like every time in his last 5 fights. There's the last 5 losses, hasn't he? It's just, if he gets hit hard, he's probably going to go unconscious. So why not? I'll take Arantes by TKO.
All right. So speaking of glass chins, we've got Sam Stout, who's known for an iron chin, which in the last couple fights has actually turned into glass. He's fighting Frankie Perez. Both fighters can be had for $9,700 on DraftKings. So pretty much a pick 'em. So when the fight opened, Stout was the favorite or slight favorite at minus 130 on 5 dimes, while Perez was at minus 110. So pretty much a pick 'em. At this point, the line is switched where Frankie Perez is minus 135 and Sam Stout is plus 115. So interesting fight here. Sam Stout, who definitely a veteran of the sport. I believe this is going to be his 20th fight in the UFC. who's known for, or who was known for his chin, and that's kind of the way he used to fight, is being able to take big shots and just kind of powering through. Has suffered a couple knockouts in his last couple of fights. Is fighting a younger up and coming fighter in Frankie Perez. So what do you got here, Brett?
Well, it's a tough fight to call, and both fighters are priced 9.7K. So if you have a lean toward either one, you're getting a good price value on them. It's a tough fight to call because Perez came into the UFC a decent prospect, but he got pasted in his debut against Johnny Case, I believe. Case just mauled him. And I think that speaks more to Case's potential than, Perez's lack of potential. And Sam Stout's been around for a long time. Like you said, he's clearly deteriorating health-wise. But Perez isn't going to be a guy most likely to test that chin. He's got okay striking. It's nothing special, but he's primarily a grappler. He's primarily a submission grappler. I believe he has most of his wins by submission. I'm pretty confident he's going to look to get the fight to the ground, just like he did against Johnny Case, and he got the fight to the ground until Case, I think reversed him and then started pounding on him. And Stout, he wants to keep the fight on the feet. There's no question about that. His wrestling's okay. I don't think it's anything special. I don't know. It's a really tough fight to call. I do think that Perez is going to be able to get the fight to the ground at some point. The question is just for how long will he be able to keep it there and how often. On DraftKings this weekend, I think there's just too many other fights that have higher finishing potential that I'm going to target. We talked about, Sam Stout's chin, and yeah, Perez could crack him and knock him out, but that's just not his game plan. I don't think he's going to be looking to knock Stout out unless he, hits him on the ground with some ground and pound and knocks him out there. So I think this fight is more than likely going to go to decision. I'm leaning Perez just because he's the fresher fighter. I think, he's got his UFC jitters out of the way and will probably be looking to show what he's really made of. So I'm going to take Perez by decision in this fight. It wouldn't shock me if Stout, got the better of him, but I don't think it has enough upside to target heavily this weekend.
Yeah, at first I was definitely on Sam Stout. I thought, he would prevail against a guy like Perez, but a lot of money coming in on Frankie Perez. But for me, for cash, I'm just kind of totally off this fight. I'll definitely have some Perez in GPPs. Again, targeting a glass chin, but I'm not too crazy about it. When it comes to cash, if you can get a favorite for under $10,000 like Perez, who's 9,700, and he's money's coming in on him, it's not an awful play. You are trying to go for the win bonus, so I wouldn't fault anyone in taking him if money kept piling in on him, especially after the weigh-ins. But I'm kind of off this fight at the moment for cash. My heart says Stout, but my official pick is going to be Perez by decision.
Yeah, it's a fight to, I think, avoid for the most part. It's just there's too many questions surrounding it. So let's move on.
Let's move on to a fight that is apparently supposed to finish inside the distance, believe it or not. Kicking off the main card, we've got a women's straw weight fight. Yes, you heard me. Valerie Letourneau. Wow, I'm butchering French names. Jeez.
You got it.
Oh, my dad would be ashamed. No, I'm kidding. Letourneau can be had for 8,900 on DraftKings against the favorite Marina Moroz, who can be had for 10,500 on DraftKings. Moroz, as the favorite, minus 170, can now be had for minus 185 on 5 dimes. So a bit of money coming in on Moroz. while Letourneau opened at plus 130, can be had for plus 160. When you think of women's strawweight fights, you don't think over-unders at 1.5 rounds. You think of over-unders at 2.5 rounds minus like 500. But apparently this one's supposed to finish. I can kind of see why based on the wins that Moroz has, but she's kind of unproven. She did have a great first win against Joanne Calderwood, but I think, as Brett is about to tell you, if I know Brett, he's not so sure that she can pick up the win here. Am I right, Brett?
Moroz all the way, baby. First round submission. No, I don't know. So I'm pretty high on Letourneau in this fight, and it's for a few reasons. Moroz came into the UFC pretty untested. She's got a bunch of first round submissions or first round arm bars. She gets a quick submission on Joanne Calderwood, and now she's all of a sudden replaced Joanne Calderwood, if not has more hype than Joanne Calderwood has.
She did beat a little person though before she got into the UFC. So
you know what? I know where you got that fact from, and I think you should stop listening to that source.
Ooh, I don't know.
That specific source you're mentioning, just he makes me furious, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, Moroz, her best route to win is by armbar. The thing that concerns me the most is that she pulls guard in almost every fight to get the armbar. She's not a Ronda Rousey where she's going to clinch with Letourneau, throw her, get into mount, and get an armbar. That's not who she is. She likes to do little pop punches, grab someone's head, pull guard, so she'll be on her back to get the armbar. And that's a good strategy in jiu-jitsu tournaments. That's a good strategy against cans. But, sooner rather than later, that's not going to work. And she's going to end up on her back, and she's going to be stuck on her back. Letourneau is not going to – okay, Letourneau is going to have what I assume to be a distinct advantage in the striking game. She's a veteran kickboxer. She's tough. She's been through wars. Moroz is not just going to run through her. I think for Moroz to win, she's going to have to pull guard and get an armbar. That's just how I see her winning. I don't know why you would expect her to win any other way. She hasn't looked good striking-wise in any of her regional fights. Yeah, she beat up Joanne Calderwood for 10 seconds on the feet. But, that's not – Joanne Calderwood had so many issues going into that fight. And if you watch Calderwood's last fight against Casey Sanchez, Calderwood is, super hittable. She doesn't defend punches well. It's not like just because Moroz was able to hit her that she's now all of a sudden an elite striker. I just think Moroz is limited in this fight, and for DFS purposes, I still obviously like her for the fact that she can get a first-round armbar, and that's 100 points. I'm just not confident that she's going to do it, and I think that it's just as likely that Letourneau is able to withstand the armbar and punch her up on the feet and probably win a decision. So it's a good test for both fighters. Letourneau trains out of ATT. Like I said, she's a veteran. She's fought a lot of good fighters. She didn't get submitted by Gadelia. She didn't get submitted by Alexis Davis. There's other people she's fought who I assume to be better than Moroz. And I just think that Letourneau is being a little bit overlooked and Moroz is being a little bit overhyped in this fight. But
yeah, I have to agree here. 100%.
Oh, really?
Brett. Sorry to interrupt. I have to agree that Moroz is overhyped. Her win inside distance for Vegas is plus 120, which makes it almost a near pick'em for the finish, which is pretty interesting. But she's never got out of the second round. She's won all of her fights, mostly in the first and maybe like one or two in the second, which I understand the line, but I have to agree with you. With Torno, like you said, she has the experience to, keep this fight going, in my opinion. Um, I think she's definitely playable in cash, and Moroz definitely does like to pull guard a lot, so she could be on her back for all 3 rounds, and Waterno could be on top and could sneak out a decision here. I'm not crazy about Waterno for GPPs. I don't think she finishes, but hey, I could be wrong. I'll have some exposure to Moroz in GPPs, but I'm not really on Moroz in cash whatsoever. There's just too many question marks on this fight, where it's hard to pay up the extra $500 for Moroz. But with Torno, if you're saving 1,100 on her and you think she can go the distance, there's nothing wrong with that. And if she gets you the win, that's an even bigger plus. So,
I think she's capable of scoring 80 points. So I don't mind her as much for GPPs, just because there's not a ton of other underdogs that I'm confident in. But yeah, I think that if you're gonna assume someone finishes, it's Moroz. So
exactly. So my official pick here is gonna be Waterno by decision. So I'm picking the underdog. But it'd be nice to see Moroz win. I'm not gonna lie. She called out the champion last fight. Maybe she'll decide to do it again if she does win this one. But again, the pick's going to be Waterno by decision.
Same here.
All right, so back in the lightweight division, we've got Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who I will call OAM for the rest of this analysis. Can be had for $10,800 on DraftKings. Is squaring off against Pretty Boy. Well, that's not his nickname, but that's what I like to call him.
2.0.
Tony Sims, who can be had for $8,600 on DraftKings. The line opened OAM minus 165 favorite, can be had for minus 240 right now. So money coming in on OAM, while Tony Sims, who opened at plus 125, can be had for plus 200. Interesting line movement here. The money coming in for OAM, I can understand it. Very solid fighter. But, when I watched Tony Sims on his first fight coming in on short notice against Montgomery, I believe, I was pretty impressed. And I think, knowing Brett, he's going to agree with me here again. I think we've been spending too much time with each other via Hangout. But what do you think, Brett? Do you think Sims has what it takes to get the upset here?
Regrettably, I agree with you. I don't take too much stock into his first fight. I mean, it was, first of all, it's great. Yeah, he moved up in weight class. He fought a really tall guy, knocked him out. Obviously, Steve Montgomery is not Aubin-Mercier. They're completely different fighters. But that does, Sims obviously has the knockout power. He's got great hands. He's got great boxing. And Mercier is, on the other hand, he's got great submission grappling. If Mercier can get this fight to the ground, he very well could submit Sims. He doesn't have the best wrestling in the world, but once he gets to a grappling ground position where he's able to advance, he really does shine. The question is whether or not he's going to be able to get the fight to the ground, and I'm not so sure. I think he might just not be there yet. I think he's got a lot of potential, but he just might not be there yet. One of the reasons I say that is, in his, obviously he submitted David Michaud in his last fight. But further, he lost to Chad the Priest, who will talk about next in the Ultimate Fighter finale. And Laprise is going to want to do the same thing or Tony Sims is going to want to do the same things that Laprise did, which is, just keep the fight standing and try to outbox Mercier. And Laprise did that really well. Sims, we know he has the hands. I don't know if Mercier is going to be able to get him to the ground long enough. And I don't see him being able to outstrike Sims at all. So I think Sims is a very live underdog in this fight. And at this point, I am leaning toward him to get the victory. I don't know if it's going to be by finish, but it could be. I think it's more likely that Sims takes a decision, but is that what you're leaning toward too, or are you taking Sims via finish?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, let me say that I am an OAM fan. I think he has a lot of potential. He's young. However, seeing Sims come up in a way, man, that guy, he's just got great hands, and he's fought at 170. He's going to be big for 155. And after OAM won his fight against David Michaud when he subbed him, after the fight he said, "Man, David Michaud stunned me." I was like, kind of maybe not knocked out, but kind of got the jelly legs or whatever. I believe he said. I was like, what? David Michaud stun you? Like, if he can do that, like Tony Sims is just gonna knock you out. So while I think OAM has a huge advantage when it comes to the ground, I'm not 100% sold he can get it there. Sims is a decent wrestler in his own right, with really great hands, and I'm actually going to pick Sims by TKO. Definitely take Sims in GPPs. Going to play him in cash games as well, I believe. See how he weighs in, obviously, being a big 155er, but I think he should have no problem with now that he's not taking a fight on short notice. He had some time before this fight. So, I mean, that my final pick is going to be Sims by TKO. I'm going to note that I will have some OAM exposure in GPP. So,
what do you think the public is going to do? The general DFS public. Do you think they're going to side more to Sims or to Mercier?
Man, it's crazy because there's so much money coming in on OAM that I'm kind of thinking that, for the price on DFS, people are going to be more towards Sims, to be honest with you. But
yeah, because I think both guys have a good chance to finish. And obviously, if Sims, even if he doesn't finish, he should get a lot of points. I think Mercier needs to finish to pay off his price. So that's why I like Sims better anyways. But Mercier can definitely finish this fight. And if everyone's going to be on Sims, and I definitely want shares of Mercier. But again, for the price, you can't ignore Sims' value. And yeah, I'm looking at him in cash. Like him in GPPs for sure. He'll be one of my higher targets this weekend.
Yeah, and in true French-Canadian fashion, the over-under on this fight is plus 2.5 rounds, the over on is 2.5 rounds minus 150. So, they think it's going to go the distance. So even if Sims happens to lose, he might rack up some points going the full 3 rounds. So, not an awful pick here. Again, I got Sims by TKO, and let's move on to the next one. What do you have, Brett? Really quick.
I think I have Sims by decision right now.
All right, so sticking in the lightweight division, we've got Chad Laprise, who can be had for 10,700 on DraftKings, is taking on Francisco Trinaldo. Masaranduba, as we like to call him, who can be had for 8,700 on DraftKings. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the fight breakdown here, Brett.
Well, I mean, this fight's there's not too much to break down here. Trinaldo's is one of those prototypical Brazilian grinders. He's going to want to clinch, get the fight to the ground. He's got decent striking, decent grappling, nothing that stands out. He's more of a top control guy. Chad Laprise is going to want to keep the fight standing. His boxing should be better than Trinaldo's. I don't think Laprise's submission grappling is better than Trinaldo's. There's no reason why he'd want the fight to go to the ground. He's going to want to keep it standing. He's going to want to box with Trinaldo. And I think he's going to be able to do it. I don't see why Trinaldo would be able to get this fight to the ground that much. I think he may clinch, try to hold Laprise against the cage for a while. He might stunt Laprise's upside a bit because of that. But I see no reason to pick Trinaldo in this fight. I just think Laprise has the better striking. He's looked great in the UFC. Trinaldo's, slower. He should absorb more punches, and I think the by far the most likely outcome in this fight is Laprise by decision.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I'm not gonna spend too much time in this fight. I thought that Trinaldo looked really good in his last fight. It kind of surprised me that maybe he's getting better at his age. Laprise is a very well-rounded fighter. I think this is a fight for him to win. When it comes to Laprise, he's won his 3 fights in the UFC by decision, though I think he does have some underrated power. Trinaldo just doesn't get finished, man. He's a tough fighter. So when it comes to this fight, I'm saying Laprise by decision. I'm really not going to have much exposure to this fight in GPPs. The over-under on this fight is over 2.5, minus 230. So this is like a lock to go to decision. I'd like to see Laprise finally get a knockout because I think he has some decent power for the weight class, but you gotta say it's Laprise by decision here. I don't think there's any question.
It's just funny because whenever I think of Laprise, I always think of him as the guy who knocked out and broke Cajun Johnson's jaw on The Ultimate Fighter. So when I remember watching that and being like, oh my God, this guy's got, granite hands, but he really hasn't shown that as much in the UFC. He's more of a point fighter, a la TriStar. So I will have limited exposure to this fight. 0 exposure to Trinaldo, but
yeah. So it sounds like we both have Laprise here by decision, and I know I didn't mention the odds at the beginning here, but more money is coming in on Laprise. So just wanted to let you know about that. But let's not waste any more time on that one. Let's move on to the next one. We've got a fan favorite, Patrick Cote, who we have for 9,400 on DraftKings, is squaring off against Josh Berkman, who can be had for exactly $10,000 on DraftKings. The favorite Berkman opened at minus 150 is now at minus 135, while the comeback on Cote, who opened at plus 110, can be had for plus 115. So the line's tightened up a little there. I really don't care about this fight too much, Brett. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you.
I was just about to say, I wish this fight was right after Beal Kalidas because that's how much I care about it. But I guess you Canadians, all of you, are interested in Cote, so I guess that's why I tie up on the card. But yeah.
Funny thing about Cote, for all the UFCs that go on Fox Sports 1, they are shown in French, and he is one of the announcers, so he does some of the in-game color and commentary. Maybe that's where he belongs, even though he has won, I believe, 4 of his last 5 fights. He's been getting a bit better, but he hasn't really fought anyone too good. To sum this fight up really quickly, Josh Berkman is probably the better fighter, in my opinion, everywhere. I don't know if you agree with that, Brett.
I do. That's how I was going to analyze the fight. I was going to say that Berkman is just slightly, if not more than slightly, better in every aspect of the game. I think the best chance for Cote is for him to wrestle Berkman to the ground. There's been questions about Berkman's fight IQ. Like maybe he'll be winning a fight in one area and then he'll all of a sudden choose to grapple or something like that. But I see no reason to pick Cote. I think Berkman could strike with him, has better submission game. I'm not confident in his chances to finish, but I think if someone is going to finish, it's going to be Berkman. It's just not a fight that I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I have to agree. And, when it comes to Berkman, he's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. One turned into a no contest against Hector the Juicer Lombard. But he's been struggling, and Cote's been winning. So some people might think that Cote's on the up and up. But just to let you know that Cote has been knocked out a couple times. He was rocked in his last fight a few times, but did get the win there. So, outside shot, maybe Berkman knocking him out, but I'm not too crazy about it. So I'm going to say Berkman by decision, but this is a close fight to call. So I'm probably going to have no exposure to this in cash. And for GPPs, I'm going to have some Berkman, but again, not too crazy about it.
Yeah, and I have Berkman by decision as well.
All right, so let's get to the co-main event of the evening, aka an interesting fight. A welterweight bout between Neil Magny. Wait, didn't that guy just fight like 2 weeks ago?
No, that was his brother, the one who sucks at wrestling and submission grappling.
Neil can be had for $9,000 on DraftKings. He's fighting Eric Silva, who can be had for $10,400 on DraftKings. The favorite Silva opened at -150 is now at -175, while Magny, who opened at +110, can be had at +155. Now, if you guys recall last week or 2 weeks ago in the last card, Magny fought Maya, which I'm going to bring up again in the next fight, interestingly enough. Magny... Our main question with Magny is, can he keep this fight standing? In this fight, it's can Magny last out a round or round and a half until Silva gets tired? And Brett's about to give you the answer to that.
Well, you gotta love Magny, right? I mean, this guy goes on a 6-fight win streak.
7-fight win streak.
7-fight win streak. Everyone knows he's got issues with, or he doesn't have the best wrestling and grappling. He fights Maya, gets wrecked by Maya. Now he's probably pissed, so he immediately wants to fight Eric Silva, a guy who's known for being super aggressive in the wrestling grappling department in the first round and loves to submit guys and finish guys in the first round. So I just think it's a terrible matchup for him. He's coming in on short notice. He just fought. I don't know that. Who knows where his cardio's at? I think if Eric Silva wins, the most likely outcome is that he finishes Magny early, either by submission or by TKO. I think Magny can win late, weather the storm. Silva might get tired. But at the same time, if Silva, wins the first round, looks good, hurts Magny, but doesn't finish Magny, I don't necessarily know that means that Silva then is just going to lose round 2 and 3. Like, I think that, the best chance for Magny to win is to either wait till Silva's tired and finish him late, very late, like at the end of the 3rd round, or win a decision. I think that Silva can submit Magny early. He obviously doesn't have the best takedown defense. Silva's very capable finisher. Like I said, he could land a TKO too, just through that aggression. I think it's possible he could win a decision too. I don't think we should be counting that out. So I just think Silva has so many more routes to victory. He has so much more. He has so much higher upside than Magny. I'm probably not going to touch this fight for cash games just because it's a little too risky in my opinion. I'm not sure. It's a little hard to predict which of those outcomes is going to happen, but I definitely like Silva for GPPs.
Yeah, I have to agree here. I have Silva winning this fight, early, whether it be by submission or knockout. Silva is a very dangerous guy on the ground. But he does have questions about his cardio. I know you were talking about Magny's cardio being questionable. He does train in Colorado, so high altitude. He didn't really get beat up against Maia. I know he got subbed out, but he just got taken down and just completely owned on the ground. So it didn't take a lot of damage. So I think that's why he took the fight on such a short notice when Rick Story pulled out. But I don't think it's going to matter too much. I think Silva's going to win. I'm going to definitely have exposure to Silva in GPPs. I don't hate him in cash games, but you really got to hold your breath if you take him. That's the only issue here.
Yeah, I'd rather hold my breath taking some other guys. But, and that's a good point. He probably took no damage against Maia. So, he probably is pretty fresh. But I don't love his chances in this fight. I think we both agree that Silva has the higher upside of the two.
Yeah, I have to agree. So I'm going to say Silva by submission in the first.
What submission?
I have no idea.
Oh, man. I predicted Silva by guillotine in the first round.
I think he has a lot of ways to win, to be honest with you. And as I've told you in many of our podcasts, I'm more of a TKO or submission or, just winning inside the distance type guy. I don't like to specify. I don't like to brag.
If you already go to win by submission, I'm assuming you got an idea of what submission you're thinking of. But it's a fair point. Yeah, it's a fair point.
All right, so moving on, let's move to the main event of the evening. We've got two highly touted youngsters fighting in the featherweight division. Max Holloway, who can be had for $10,600 on DraftKings, against Charles Oliveira, who can be had for $8,800 on DraftKings. Holloway opened at minus 165. The favorite is now at minus 240, so a lot of money coming in on him. While Oliveira can be had for plus 200 at the moment. He opened at plus 125. So again, money coming in on Holloway. I'm super excited for this fight. It's going to be a great one. I did mention that I was going to bring up Neil Magny again in this fight, and I am. So if you remember, he fought Damian Maia, and the question was, can Magny keep this on the feet? A lot of people are asking the same question about the favorite in this fight, Max Holloway. Can Max keep this fight on the feet and pick Oliveira apart? A lot of differing opinions in this fight. Let's get your take, Brett.
Well, I'm just going to be honest and say that I don't think that is the comparison that people are using, but I don't think that's a legitimate comparison, because if we watch Damian Maia against Neil Magny, Maia took him down and just smothered him, smothered him until he got on the back, until he got a rear naked choke. That's not Charles Oliveira from everything that I've seen. Oliveira is a great submission grappler, sure, but he's much more of a submission over position grappler. He's not going to lay on Holloway, smother him, throw no ground and pound, just hold him down, advance into half guard, advance into mount. That's just not who he is. If he sees anything, he's going to jump on it. So yeah, the question is, can Holloway keep the fight standing? I'm not sure. I think Oliveira can certainly get this fight to the ground. If he does, it'll probably be early. But just because he gets the fight to the ground, I'm not going to, end the fight there. Oliveira has to keep him down and has to submit him. It's not like Damian Maia, where if Damian Maia gets you to the ground, it's like, man, you're probably going to be submitted. Oliveira, has to submit him. And yeah, he has a lot of avenues for submission, but like a lot of that, he'll throw up guillotines from standing. He's gotten calf slicers. Those aren't submissions that you control your opponents with. Obviously Holloway will have to be careful everywhere he goes, but he just has such an advantage on the feet, in my opinion. His boxing looked amazing against Cub Swanson. he really outclassed Cub Swanson in his last fight. He's got such a high volume striking game, similar to the Diaz brothers in the sense where he's not putting everything behind his punches. He's just trying to land, and sooner or later, they add up, and his opponents break. And Oliveira is a guy who's been known to break. He's not exact. I'm sure he's a tough guy, but comparatively to all the other fighters in the UFC, I wouldn't consider him one of the tougher guys. And I think if this fight stays standing, Holloway is just going to keep adding those punches up over and over, and probably eventually he's going to hurt him. And once Oliveira is hurt, he doesn't do well from there. And I think Holloway has a great chance to finish him, between the third and the fifth round. If Oliveira wins, I think it's most likely by an early submission, But I'm so high on Holloway. I think he has, I think he could be fighting for a title next year. It's just, this kid's awesome to watch, and I definitely hope he wins, but I'm also predicting him to win.
Yeah, I have to agree here. A lot of experts are saying this is a dog or pass situation based on the fight. Based on the odds at the moment, I can see why that is. Max Holloway for $10,600, who has really good takedown defense. And when I mentioned that this fight's kind of like the Magny Maia fight, I was saying like the storyline is about the same. I wasn't saying that the fighters were the same. Definitely
Gotcha.
Holloway, way better takedown defense here. He's young, he's up and coming, getting better and better. That fight against Swanson was amazing. He brings a high pace. If it goes 5 rounds, even if he loses, he's going to score a ton of points. Obviously, Vegas doesn't think that. The over-under on this fight is 1.5 rounds. The over at -230. So they think this is going to finish. And I'm going to lean towards Holloway as well. I'm going to say Holloway by TKO probably in like the second or third round. I think he's playable in cash games. Oliveira for 8,800, 5-round fight. I don't see why you couldn't play him in cash games as well, even though I do like better options around that price range. If he does win, he's going to get you a lot of points. And if he doesn't win, well, if it goes a couple rounds, he might score you some points. So not too bad, but he's definitely a GPP play in my opinion. Because if he does win, it's probably going to be in the first couple rounds by submission.
Yeah, I agree. Oliveira, just for the submission threat, he's a good GPP play. For cash games, sure. I probably, at this point, I'm not leaning that route just because I'm high on Holloway. But, he's a very capable finisher, and he certainly could finish the fight, and that's obviously what we're looking for in GPPs.
Great. So that about does it for this card. Brett, want to thank you so much for all the amazing rundowns that you're giving here. You can catch his MMA beatdown article coming out on Roto Grinders, which is probably in the next couple hours.
It's written. Just I'll link this to it, and I'll get it up there.
Are you doing a video this week?
Yeah, it's done. It'll probably be out tomorrow, if I had to guess.
All right, so definitely check that out. Brett's going to be touting his favorite plays of the card. Definitely worth a watch, and you get to see that pretty face one more time before the fights on Sunday, by the way. A lot of people, at least I thought that it was Saturday, but in fact is Sunday. On that note, everyone, good luck in your cash games. Good luck in your GPPs. Hopefully, if I don't take one of them down, I hope one of you do. From Brett and myself, follow us on Twitter. I'm at gravycakes DFS, while Brett is at Brett Apley. You guys know the drill, double T, double P, and Brett Apley. From Brett and myself, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next card, which is September 5th. So Good luck in your fights, guys.